For numbers 19 through 22, this is Unit 7, Targets 1 and 2 homework. You're trying to find the coordinates of one endpoint when you are given one endpoint and a midpoint. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I've seen students work through it just by thinking of how far did I go left and right and how far did I go up and down and could I do that again. And I've also seen students work through it with the algebra. So I'm going to show you with the algebra first and then also show you how you could think through it on the graph. That way you could use either strategy, but you're going to want to be comfortable with probably both strategies for your test. So since I have one point given to me, G, this is my, let's say my X1 and my Y1. Put my Y1 in red. And then I also have the coordinates of the midpoint. So I'm going to call that XM and YM. That way I know that that's the midpoint. I'm going to use this formula I just circled in blue to work with the X's. I don't know X sub 2 and I don't know Y sub 2. That's the point I'm trying to find. But I can set up the equation with everything else. So to do the X's, I'm going to say X sub 1, which is 5. So take the X that I know and add X to it, because there's an X I don't know for the other endpoint. The two X's divided by 2 should equal the midpoint. So the 4 from the midpoint came there. I can set up a very similar equation for the Y values using this. Take the two Y values, the Y value that I know, which is -6, the Y value that I don't know, so Y, divided by 2, and that's going to equal the Y value of the midpoint, 3. From here, some students will solve that kind of by thinking through it. For the blue fraction, we know that something divided by 2 has to equal 4, so 8 divided by 2, and you could reason through it that way. You can also solve the equation. I'm going to show my solving steps in green. So I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by 2, and that's going to result in 5 plus x is equal to 8. If you're not sure where the fraction went on the left side of the equation, make sure that you do ask your teacher to explain that with you. But ultimately, because you're dividing by 2 and multiplying by 2, those cancel each other out as inverse operations. So all you have left is 5 plus x. I then subtract 5 on both sides and I get x equals 3. Same thing on the red equation for y. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the denominator on the left-hand side. That gives me -6 plus y is equal to 6. And if I add 6 to both sides, I'll get y equals 12. So my coordinates for the other point are 3, 12. Let's see if they said to find the other point, G and H. So H is 3, 12. So that is one way to do it completely with using the algebra. I also want to show you a way to get that same answer by graphing. If I plotted G, G is at 5, -6. Okay, that's point G. My midpoint is at 4, 3. And so what we know is that the distance from G to M has to be the same as from M to H. And one of the ways that we calculated distance earlier this year, back in Unit 4, was the idea of a slope distance. A slope distance is measured as just the horizontal components and the vertical components. To go from G to M, you'd have to go up 9 and over 1. And so if you went up 9 more, 3 plus 9 would be 12. And over 1 more, you would get the second endpoint, which is 3, 12. I kind of like that way better, but if you are working with decimals or something where it's not easy to graph and figure that out, you do need to know the algebraic side or way of doing it.